Hello and welcome back to another video on the channel today. Today we're going to be discussing some simple things about OBS that I kind of take for granted as assumed knowledge, but a lot of people have kind of pointed out to me might not necessarily be something that everybody understands or gets. So without too much ado, we're going to jump into that and we're going to keep going. But before all that, coffee. All right, so we're going to dive down real quick, but I first want to preface a few things. What I'm not going to do today is I'm not going to talk about setting up your OBS for streaming or for recording. I'm not going to go into the settings and information. What I am going to mention on that is under the tools menu, there is an auto configuration wizard. And if you just hit the optimize for what you're doing, it will set it up with the best way you can have it with your right encoding, all of that kind of stuff. That would be the first best bet if you're going to set up your information for streaming. Okay, so now that we've covered over that, what we're going to talk about today is really simple-ish things to look at, like scenes, sources, the audio mixer, scene transitions, the basic controls. I'm going to cover over these because it has been pointed out to me by a few friends that they're not necessarily something that everybody knows, but it would be good to have a source of information on that. So we're going to start at scenes and sources. So my scenes and sources, which you can see down here, I have a large number of scenes, but some of these scenes only have one source in it. So if we look at my cameras, there's one source per these two scenes down here. That's because they're what we call nested scenes. Now we've covered over nested scenes before in a video, so I'm not going to reiterate it. But effectively, it's the baseline for where you keep your things. So it's a good way to keep everything neat and tidy that you can just apply en masse to every other scene you've got. But what scenes are is a scene is what your stream is going to see or what your recording is going to see. For example, we're looking at my starting soon scene right now, and then we would switch from there over to my chatting scene, and then from there we might at some point switch over to my live scene or one of my other scenes, so that this is the final design point. This is exactly what we're going to be sending out. We don't necessarily send out these as in the sources as individuals, but the scene is the overall composition of all of those things that you've put together. The sources, on the other hand, are the things you've put together. So within your sources, there's a number of options. You've got audio input and output capture, which is literally you can capture an audio input device on your computer, or you can capture an audio output device on your computer like your headset or your speakers. On top of that, we've then got browsers, which is how a lot of us bring in overlays and things like that. Is we use something like Stream Elements as they use the browser URL as the overlay. So when you're adding a new browser overlay, for example, we'll just add a test one. So that's basically how they come up until you've actually put some information in. And then we'll go grab one from Stream Elements to put in for you. So this is one I made earlier. So I'm just going to grab the URL from Stream Elements and go like this. And then I'm going to size it the same size as my display, which is 2150 by 1440. I think I've got that wrong. I don't know, whatever 2560 maybe? 2560 by 1440. There we go. So that's how you bring your overlay in. As a browser source, and then you can stretch and grow that out to whatever you might want it to be. So the best way that Stream Elements recommends, if I remember correctly, is to actually put everything in as 1920 by 1080, which is the default size, and then stretch it out. And there we go. That's an overlay brought in by browser source. So I'm just going to remove that. After that, we've also got color sources, which I think may come off a plugin, but I'm sure they're standard. But a color source is literally just a block of color. So we could have a black block here, and then we could put it in a corner that we want to put something in, like this. And then you can have whatever it is in that corner, and that'll always be a blacked out area. So no matter how translucent the object, it'll still show. We've then got... we've got display captures, which are your, like literally a display capture. So I'll use my existing one. This is a display capture. It's capturing what we're displaying on the screen at the time. So I use those in nested scenes, but you could literally just build one of those in. After that, you've got game capture, which is an option that gives you like the ability to capture a specific game. But I have had some issues with it personally. So I don't use it, but it is another way you can capture your game. After that, we've got image and image slideshow. So image, the best thing I can explain this with is this down here, my little avatar character thing down here that you can see floating around the screen. That's literally just an image that I've brought into OBS and then moved around a little bit with the filters. You can also have a slideshow, which you pick a section of images and it will flick through them. Media source, best media source I can explain is actually my entire starting soon screen. After I built it all and blended it all together, I recorded it for 8 seconds, and then I just play it on loop. So you can bring in a local file off your computer, and then you can loop it, or you can have it play once or whatever. Same with all of these. These are all locally housed video files that I just have come in. After that, we've got, I'm ignoring these two because they are from a plugin. Scenes. So what you can do is you can bring in a scene as a source. So that's how I use my nested scenes, is I'll have my camera where like we go 1, which is this camera, 1.5, which is this camera with this box on it. 11, which is this one with the cam border on it. And then to bring it into a scene, it's in here, brought in as a scene. After that, we've got text sources. So text sources, the easiest one I can show you is I have a death counter up there in the top, which is probably a little hard to see on this background. So we'll put it here. So I have a little death counter here, and that's text files. So text files are really cool in the fact that you can bring them in from a local file. So if you have a chatbot that writes to a file, then you can select it to read from file and you go find that file and you can go from there. Otherwise, if we don't do that, then we can select fonts. You can do text transformations of variety. So, you know, uppercase, lowercase, start case, whatever. You can change the color of it. You can add gradients to the color. There's lots and lots of options in there. Dive down, have a good squiz at what they all happen to be. And that's probably the best explanation I can give for that one. VLC video source is effectively down the same line as media source, I believe. I don't think I've ever actually used one. But if you've got a VLC player, then you can like if you use VLC player for your music or videos or whatever, you can line them up in there. Video capture device is normally how you would input your webcams, as you can see here. Any of your Elgato capture products or your various capture products all generally go through here as well. So what the properties menu for that looks like is this. So you pick your device. So we'll stick with my game capture. So that's actually my Elgato HD60 Pro. So if we were to layer this in here on the scene or squish it over a little bit, then it captures my various video inputs. After video capture, we've also got window capture. So window capture is kind of cool in the fact that it allows you to pick a specific thing. So I like to have mine, if it's going to point at anything, it normally points at my Spotify, which for some reason it doesn't like me right now. But in this case, that's perfectly fine. So what we'll show here is we're actually, we're looking at a capture of my web browser. So it's a bit more adaptive than just a display capture, because I've currently got a number of things over this web page, but it's capturing the screen. So it can be useful if you've got like, if you use like the AI poem writer or something like a friend of mine does, or various things that you want to capture one very specific window and nothing else. It's a really good method for that. And that pretty much brings us to the main sources. So it's pretty much all the sources out there that come standard. You can also group sources together. Aside from affecting blends and things like that, I don't use it very often, but it is an option for keeping your things locked together. I use nested scenes instead of groups more often. After we've gone through that, so we've got this little slide down here called scene transitions. So scene transitions are, they're literally like how your scene swaps across. So I'm going to chuck this in studio mode, which is going to look a little funny for a second, and just show you the types of transitions that come standardly. So standardly you have a cut, which if we pick a different scene, will go like this and just chonk you over to that scene, which can be a little jarring for your viewers. You can set up a fade. I've got a 300 millisecond fade set up there. That's just a slow one. Or you could set up like something like a stinger. Now, stingers are normally, they're a wash of image that goes across, and whilst it's covered your entire screen for half a second, it swaps scene. So that's what a stinger would normally be. And then there's things called track matte stingers, which is what this is, where it reveals the scene inside the other scene, which is a really cool way to do it. It's a bit finicky though. That's scene transitions. There's a multitude of other options as well. Obviously my move transitions are also, like the move transitions I use are also in that menu as well. If we go add and we just add my move transition and we go chatting and then we go like this, it shows you on the side here. It's just moving really quickly, but moving. Okay, so that's scene transitions. Then we've got the controls menu, which is relatively straightforward. You've got a start streaming button, a start recording button, a start virtual camera button. So what the virtual camera is it sends everything that's on display in your scene in OBS to as a webcam or a virtual camera, effectively. So I'm using a version of this at the moment to actually record this video, where my camera has the virtual filter. Virtual camera filter attached to it is sending to one device and back to another. My last video touches on that specifically. But the virtual camera allows me to send all of the information from my stream. No matter what scene I'm on, it'll send all the information from the scene as a stream, effectively as a webcam source. I use this in Discord if I'm going over things about stream or about OBS with people to better visualize my point. Start recording, it starts your recording. Start streaming starts your streaming. Studio mode does this. So what this is built for is to allow you to click on and align your scene without affecting your live scene, and then transition at your own leisure. You can even slide the transition slowly if you really want to. So that's what studio mode is built for. And then of course we have the settings button, which is down here in the bottom. And has all the information in here we might at any point need, including hotkeys and advanced and all of that. Definitely a useful settings menu. And then there's the exit button. The last thing we're going to touch on is the audio mixer. So that's right down there below me, down here. And what the audio mixer, we have touched over ways to capture your audio previously, but the audio mixer is a display for all of the various sources across your OBS that are making noise. Now this is it is scene adaptive, so as you can see down the bottom here, as I change scenes, the amount of them moves around a bit, and that's because in some scenes I have things that do make noise and some things that don't make noise. So there is a couple of ways you can manage and mitigate all of these. You can hide anything that you don't care about the sound that comes out of it, anything you don't need to monitor. So you can hide your overlays if they have a noise bar, because sometimes they do that. Any extra things you've got loaded in, you can close those down so you don't necessarily have to monitor them. I like to keep up my primary mic/aux, which if we go back to the settings real quickly under audio, as we're talking about the audio mixer, these up here are preset options. So if you go into here and you set your system audio as your default, or you set your default, it's going to mean that anything that plays noise on your computer is going to be picked up through that channel, and that channel will be across every single scene you have. Same with your mic and / auxiliary audio. If you attach your microphone in here, or your audio interface, or your USB or whatever into this section, it will be across all of them, which means you don't have to consistently be going through and adding your microphone to each scene you've got. So that's pretty much that. On top of that, you can affect anything in here. Obviously, you can drag it around. As I said, we did an entire video where I talked about good ways to import your audio as individuals, as well as monitor it, which I will link down below. So that is scenes, sources, the audio mixer, the controls, the scene transitions. The only other thing that I can think of that may be sort of difficult to understand is docs, which we've covered over in another video as well. To recover them over really quickly, docs are where you can see various pieces of information around your screen. You can build yourself custom browser docs up here by having the URL of one of these things. So if you go to Stream Elements, for example, you go to your activity feed, you can literally just copy the URL from that page and put it in a custom browser doc, and you'll get this. Same with the hosting you one down here. You can get that from the Twitch dashboard, same as the activity feed. Even your stream chat, you can bring in all the same way. Some of them are pretty standard, some of them are not. That's pretty much everything. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. So hopefully some of this has been useful for you. My name is Yas and/or Yaslana Gray. If you stuck around this long, please like and subscribe. Drop a comment if you have anything in particular you would like me to address or are interested in. And as always, look after yourselves.